If you successfully want to launch and sell an online course or coaching program or mastermind or some sort of product that your fans are going to buy, then you have to build anticipation for it. You have to make them feel like this is going to be a special event, and you have to warm them up until the launch date, because otherwise they're just not gonna feel like this is something that's worth it. They're not gonna be invested in it. And the typical launch model says that you have to do these pre-launch campaigns before doing any direct sale. And every single email marketer or direct response marketer is very adept at doing that. However, the problem is that at this point, so many people have launched so many different courses and programs. People are getting tired of it, especially in the copywriting niche and the direct marketing niche, because people know most of the gurus out there, or a lot of the gurus out there, who are selling their courses, and all these gurus, they're all using the same strategies. Every single one of them is using the same strategies, the same email campaign structures, and the same types of emails to do these pre-launches, often influenced by Jeff Walker, who came up with product launch formula, which is the gold standard nowadays for launching a product. However, today's email does something different. I believe it's still a pre-launch email because it builds anticipation for the course launch. It shifts beliefs. It's really there to establish the eventual product as something different and superior compared to anything else people have seen before, but it does it in a different way. And this is a shining example of using edutainment in your emails, which means you educate them. So you teach them something, but you're also entertaining them at the same time. And I believe nowadays the best person, or at least one of the best people who are doing this in email, is Daniel Throssell. He's so-called the Australia's best copywriter. I don't know if this is the case or not, but one of his clients told him that. And I love it how he uses this in his marketing. And he's deliberately polarizing about it, because obviously, who are we to judge who's the best copywriter in Australia? It might be Pauline Longdon. It might be some up and coming copywriter. It might be Daniel. It depends. There's so much context around this. But Daniel, he is really, I think that his biggest skill is not even copywriting. It's his way to personally brand himself. And it's just amazing what he does in his emails. And that's why I chose this one, because this email is very meta, okay? He's walking you through the script of price anchoring, basically, because when you launch a product, you want to price anchor it. And there's a specific, relatively rigid script that you want to use, at least what most people use when they're price anchoring things. But Daniel knows that his audience, they're also subscribed to other email lists, like Justin Goff, Stefan Georgi, Copy Chief, who knows, maybe they're also subscribed to me. And he wanted to do something really different, really creative, because that's what works. And if you're familiar with Eugene Schwartz's 5 stages of market sophistication framework, then you know how important it is to give people a different type of message if they're more advanced in their stage of sophistication. It's not enough after a while to just give them a promise. You have to come up with a mechanism. And after it's not enough to just come up with the mechanism. You have to embellish on that mechanism. And after a while, it's not even enough to do that. Like, if you want to, sell a turmeric supplement nowadays, which is like a very competitive market in the alternative health niche, you really have to come up with something super creative. And that's why we see all these creative stories and punch in the gut stories, like how Chris Haddad does it. And oftentimes they don't work because it takes a very specific skill set to pull these off, but I think this one definitely works, especially to his audience. I'm not saying it would work with everyone, especially with older audiences or people who aren't really receptive for this type of humor. But just like Ben Settle, Daniel Throssell does a great job at actively attracting people who would appreciate this, and repelling people who would be offended by this or triggered by this or something like that. So I just wanted to give you this context so that you understand the deeper psychology going on behind this and why he did what he did. And of course, there's a lot of other so-called micro copywriting things going on. But if you understand this, I think the aim, the strategic aim, the one goal of the email is going to be clearer. So before we dive into the email, by the way, if you're new here, then make sure to subscribe. I'm releasing these videos daily nowadays. And also, if you enjoy these types of videos, then do me a solid and like it and leave a comment behind, under it, because it definitely helps a lot, especially because YouTube's algorithm doesn't like these long form videos. But with that being said, let's jump into the email. The subject line basically says, how to price anchor like a boss. And it's on a surface, it's not like the world's best subject line. Like if you were to look at it from an objective point of view, it's not like something that knocks you off your chair or something. But in this case, it probably works because this audience has been warmed up a little bit. And they know that Daniel often teaches them something in a very educative way. So in this case, just like we mentioned with Ben Settle, I think the from line itself, Daniel Throssell, also acts kind of like a subject line, because people aren't really opening these emails necessarily because of the subject line. They're opening it because Daniel has built tons of know, like, and trust with his audience. And people know that if they open something from him, it's going to be funny. It's going to be contrarian. It's going to bash on Matt Blockenstadt or something. It's going to do something that's out of the ordinary, that gives people a break so that they can get away from their daily lives full of things to do, wars, uncertainty, hassles, and everything. They have like 3 to 5 minutes of Zen time with Daniel. And I think this is also the reason why he has such a high open rate and click-through rate. So let's see how the email begins. It says, the most annoying email opening line ever is, ever since I announced XYZ, I've been getting a lot of questions that say. And then he says, I hate that line. To me, it represents the old dead way of personality-free email copywriting that is the antithesis of my entire fun email approach. So this is already a contrarian angle, and this is so consistent with what Daniel does. He's the contrarian type of email marketer. He's just like Ben Settle in this regard. Like he's very good at establishing these us versus them things, and it's scientifically proven. Like this works. People they either choose a side, they either choose him, or they either choose, I don't know, copy legends in this regard, because there was some beef between these two people during the last Black Friday sale. If you're involved in the in the copywriting world, you've probably heard about this at least a little bit. But yeah, contrarian style, and it's also relatable because most copywriters, and remember, we are selling, I'm guessing in this case, to intermediate copywriters or journeyman copywriters who aren't total beginners, but they're not experts, like super high level experts either. However, like a lot of his customers are probably also going to be more advanced copywriters as well, because his unique style definitely works. And I'm guessing tons of copywriters, including me, for example, we're curious, like, how does this random guy from Australia, consistently outperform a lot of A-list copywriters in this regard? Yeah, because he's doing something different, but like, how is he doing it? And that's why, this line or using this lead, this opening is smart, because Daniel knows that this is going to relate to most copywriters. And by angling this, positioning this as like a contrarian angle, he can immediately pay off of this and include a joke, which is why I wrote this little email intro, so that it wouldn't be my first line. So he's actually using the same first line, but he wanted to add something before it to just do something different, right? The name of the game here is different. Daniel is always trying to do stuff that's different, and I guess that's why that's one of the reasons why he's very successful at this. And one thing that this immediately brings up is, I get this question a lot, like what template should I use as a copywriter? Who should I mimic? Who should I study from? Who should I hand copy as from? And my answer is, I don't know, whoever you like. But one thing to keep in mind is that, sure, all the fundamental persuasion principles are the same. And I broke down 100 proven sales letters, remember, last year. Link in the description to that if you haven't checked that out, from all the most famous copywriters that are out there. And the same things would probably work today to some extent. But also keep in mind that what Gary Halbert did in the 60s, that was revolutionary. And it would still be very good today. But if everybody's using the same techniques nowadays, it wouldn't work so well, because one of the reasons why it works so well is because it was so revolutionary. And nowadays, if people are just trying to mimic it, it's not that effective. That's why David Deutsch says that you should do copy thinking, not necessarily copywriting. You have to think like, how can you talk to people like they're normal people, instead of just, doing a few courses and rigidly trying to force your template that you learned from, John Carlton or something down people's throats. It doesn't work like that, not anymore at least. So there's a twist in the beginning. We also get a little reason why element, like why he's doing this. And then he reflects on the common question, like he's getting a lot of replies from people asking about the price of Campaign Conqueror. And this is the first mention of the course in this email, at least. Campaign Conqueror, pretty cool name, but what's it gonna cost? And I realized, this is the perfect opportunity for me to price anchor you, wink. So this is the opportunity that sets up the teaching part of the email. As I said, this is an edutainment email. It educates and it entertains at the same time. And it's very meta, because you're demonstrating the whole technique. You're not holding it back. You're demonstrating the whole technique inside the email as well. But you're not just doing it like that because some people are already doing it. But you're adding your own layer of personality and fun and humor to it. And this is the genius part of this email. And nobody else does this. I wish I would, but maybe I'm not that funny compared to Danielle. But I tend to be stuck in teaching mode in a lot of cases. And I know that this is a limiting thing, but with my personality, I'm kind of this academic type of guy, someone who's interested in tons of different things. I often tend to forget that I also have to educate, entertain people. But it's one thing to keep in mind, one cool thing to keep in mind here. So this part basically says, reader, let's do an experiment. And what happens here is, before we getting into the story and revealing the price, the anchored price itself, he does he uses a few paragraphs to establish the value of Campaign Conqueror. It says basically that this is his most valuable course he's ever created. It's the exact blueprint I use to run all my emails, my sales emails, the very things which make me all my money and all my courses. And then he specifically lists them so that maybe some people, they've taken some of these courses. Maybe they're familiar with these for some reason, and maybe just because maybe people they haven't taken their courses, but they heard about this, or the name of the course sounds like something valuable. So Market Detective, Upwork in 1 hour, Email Celebrity are indirectly related to profits, but Campaign Conqueror is about the very thing that makes all the money: email campaigns. So this is basically like how to do a launch campaign via email. That's the essence of the course, but notice how it's positioned. It's not like the N+1 typical email funnel course or something like that. He brands it differently, he positions it differently. Campaign Conqueror, like how to conquer everybody else. I'm guessing that's what this relates to. How to conquer everybody else with your email campaign, and supposedly it's better than all these two. And so I can hereby announce that Campaign Conqueror will launch for the pricely sum of, and get this, 2,000 million billion trillion Googleplex dollars. And like, this is funny. This is funny. Obviously, it's way over the top, but that's what he's going for. He's ridiculing all the people who are selling like a $50 ebook and anchoring the price at $20,000 because like they make up all sorts of reasons for it. Like, everybody knows that's bullshit, but he's making fun of that, right? And if you're making fun of something, why not go all in? Why not like be super ridiculous? Hell, why not add like 10 more different types of things? Well, probably it would lower readability. It would be too much. Like, there's a sweet spot for these types of things, but he knows that, you know, most people are gonna be like, what? And that's why he repeats it. And we know repetition is important in copywriting or persuasion. Plus, it makes the joke land even harder. So did that sink in? I repeat, 2,000 million billion trillion Googleplex dollars. And that's a fair price, mind you. So from here on out, he's basically using the same typical price anchoring framework that most, well, good email, like sales copywriting courses teach. So there's a specific structure that you go through, right? And he's ridiculing every single part of that structure. And most people probably, they like, especially more beginner copywriters who are reading this, they might not be familiar with it, but those who are more advanced, they're gonna be like, I see what you did there, and it's funny, and it builds a lot of know, like, and trust, definitely. So then he goes, and that's a fair price, mind you. I could have charged a lot more than 2,000 million billion trillion Googleplex dollars, but I was firmly convinced it was worth it. And then we go into the price drops, because with the price anchor strategy, you always have to do price drops. So he says, and then a dinner with my wife changed everything. And notice that in his story, he's using dialogue. And that's, again, very specific, very deliberate, because dialogue usually converts better than just a monologue, because people perceive it as something more trustworthy, something that's more real, in a sense, like, oh, you wouldn't make up a conversation like that, right? You're much more likely to make up a dialogue or a fake story or something. You can still make it up, and this is probably also made up, but still, it's way more engaging. Plus, it's different. Once again, it's different. So the story goes, I was telling my plans to Haley at dinner one night. This is my most valuable information, and I need to charge accordingly. You know, value-based pricing. Again, like riffing off of value-based pricing that more intermediate copywriters are familiar with. And I need to charge accordingly, I told her, swilling a glass of expensive wine and letting out the booming laugh. Think of all the money we'll make. She frowned. But Daniel, she said, gently placing her hand on my elbow. Notice the visualization element. This really seems like a novel. It seems like a real story. And this is important if you want to do good storytelling and dialogue. You want to add these subtle little details. You're not just like, and Danielle said this, and Haley said this. No, you're kind of showing instead of telling. You're gently placing a hand on my elbow. People can imagine this. They can see it with their own internal eye. And we've talked about this before in previous email breakdowns, that from a cognitive psychology perspective, there's not much difference between your mind, your eyes seeing something for real, and your mind creating a mental image. We're very visual, and how we write and how we read copy, actually, even though you might hear your internal voice as you're reading something, it's very visual as well. It's just how our brains work. So this is definitely a more advanced way to add depth to the story, which makes it more real, which makes it more believable, which makes it higher converting. So would you have been able to afford that when you were starting out? Then it hit me. And another thing, notice how many subheads he uses. I should probably also start using more subheads. He knows that the attention span of most people, especially people on his list who are on average younger, they're on average, let's say there are more beginners there than on, I don't know, John Carlton's list. And he has to use more of these subheads to keep the attention of people. A lot of bolded things, a lot of uppercases and stuff like that. It just from a visual perspective, even if you're just scanning, you're way more likely to for your eyes to land on something like 2,000 million billion trillion Googleplex dollars. So sorry about that. So then it hit me. Suddenly I felt something melt inside me. I wanted more copywriters to have access to this knowledge, and not many of them have 2,000 million billion trillion Googleplex dollars lying. Googleplex dollars lying around. At least I know that when I was a beginner, that was a lot of money to me. So again, he's repeating this ridiculous sum so many times, because the more times he repeats it, the more it lands, the more people, laugh about it. And then comes the next part of the first price drop, actually. So he says, So I resolved then and there that I would not launch Campaign Conqueror for a cent more than, and then he just strikes through this most ridiculous sounding thing. And there you have price drop number 1. As you know, a Googleplex is 10 with a Google, 10 times 100, or 10 to the power of 100 zeros after it. So to say I just gave you a discount is, well, the understatement of the history of the universe. So it's so incredibly ridiculous, but it highlights the fact that when typical marketers do a price drop, they first anchor it to again, $20,000, and they cut it down to $5,000. They come up with some simple reason why, I normally charge on my masterminds, I charge $20,000, but because, I saw a black swan today, I'm going to give it to you for just $5,000 because, you have beautiful eyes or something like that. And this is just then he adds a little contextualization element with this whole thing, and I love it because it really sounds like the deal of the universe, and it's deliberately so over the top. It's funny. And I was just about to proceed to launch at that price when a thought stuck with me. What if I did something crazy, something unheard of, something obscene? And this, again, it makes fun of all the punch in the gut style storytelling methods of people position these price anchors as oh my god, I'm doing the most ridiculous thing in the history of the universe. And as I thought about it, a plan started to form in my mind, because I realized that if 2,000 million billion trillion dollars was a good deal, imagine the response if I launched Campaign Conqueror for just 2,000 million billion dollars. Amazing, incredible, deal of the century. This would make the headlines, I thought. So again, just ridiculous. Sounds ridiculous. And I was just writing up my sales emails to launch it at that price, but that's when my accountant called me. Again, the ridiculousness of the story. It's so over the top, it sounds real almost. And obviously it's made up, but it's a great way to just make fun of the typical made up stories of price anchors. And that's why he also made this up. But in case you made it up, why not go all in, right? So that's when my accountant called me. Again, we have a fantasy conversation, and it's a dialogue with tons of quotes and everything. So, hello, I said, answering the phone. Hi, Daniel, she said, painting. Oh, good. I caught you in a time to stop you from making a terrible mistake. A mistake? What do you mean? I asked, concerned. Well, she gasped. I ran the figures and I realized I forgot to carry the 6, and well, you can afford to launch the course for only $2,000 million and still break even. I literally dropped the phone in shock. Only $2,000 million. Was she on drugs? How would I feed my kids? None of it made any sense. So notice the storytelling continues. There's self-doubt here. It makes it sound real. It's with good storytelling, you always have these highs and lows and ups and downs. But she followed up with an email providing that I would indeed still make a profit if I launched Campaign Conqueror for $2,000 million. And so, with trembling hands, I typed an email authorizing my team to proceed with the launch preparations at that price and slumped back into my chair in relief. It was all over. It was finally over. But then, something happened. So again, good stories, they have tons of ups and downs and tons of drama. And Daniel is definitely no stranger to drama. He actively uses, he feeds off of drama. In fact, he might be like he might really, really enjoy this deep down inside. I don't, but I can definitely understand how tons of people, in fact, most people they gravitate towards people who can share cool pieces of drama with them. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of drama movies and novels and stuff like that work so well and so many people read them. People love drama. It is what it is. So it was ping, a notification came through on Slack. I checked it and burst out of my chair in rage. Notice the visuals again. Burst out of my chair in rage. It wasn't like, I was annoyed or something. No, I burst out of my chair in rage, like a Super Saiyan or something. There on the screen was the sales page all set up and ready to go. Yet my designer had made a terrible mistake and he'd forgotten to write the million. Instead, this awful ghastly price confronted my eyes. $2,000. So notice this is the final price probably, but notice how we went from like a ridiculous price to still a ridiculous price to still a ridiculous price to a realistic price. A lot of like more comprehensive online courses, they're priced at $2,000. So this kind of makes sense, but I'm guessing there's going to be like more eventually. So then the story continues. No, I screamed, clawing at my head in agony. How did this happen? And then we have another technique used in these price anchoring strategies, in which you relate your product to either competitors' products, or in this case, to some of your own other products. So the email goes, heck, email celebrity is 2,000, and that only shows how to get people onto your list, not how to sell them any lower, and it might be even cheaper than such thrifting courses as Marketing Detective or my Inbox Detonator Bunker, which is 1,000. So notice again the deeper psychology behind it. And notice, like some people might not notice this, but 2,000, 1,500, 1,000, and it just counts down. I think it's deliberate. It's the how we position these courses, starting with the most expensive first. It's deliberate, so it makes people hope that this is going to be even less expensive. So then he goes, how can I afford to launch Campaign Conqueror, the most directly valuable knowledge I possess, the secrets to how I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars selling my own products off a tiny list for such a measly sum as $2,000? I couldn't. I'd be ruined. Notice the drama again, the over-the-top risk and danger that comes from this. But then again, and this is smart. This part is really smart because he's seeding the idea of a potential other discount. We don't know if it's gonna happen or not. Like the official price at this point is $2,000, but he says, who knows what will happen by the time I launch next week? Whether I'll be forced to launch at a ridiculous price, or whether there might even be a launch discount. The mere thought makes me shudder. Nobody knows for sure right now. Wink. So who knows what might happen? Will there be a discount? Will there not be a discount? We don't know, but you have to keep on reading future emails to find out, because otherwise you're gonna miss out discovering this secret. So it's a more advanced way to build even more desire and curiosity for your product. And I can guarantee you that even if most people don't buy this, they're still going to check out the page just so that they can at least check out the price. And I'm guessing if Daniel's probably write a very unique type of sales page for this, the price is going to be hidden somewhere. So people are going to have to read certain parts of the page to get to the price. They won't be able to just simply scroll down. And even if they scroll, they're going to be almost hit in the face with these big ass subheads. So maybe that's one of the reasons why he uses these big ass subheads. So we're almost at the end of the email. So nobody knows for sure, but there's one thing that I do know. You might want to make sure you've gone through your email copywriting compendium beforehand. So this is, I think it's his more beginner-friendly product. It's his lower-price product probably. So like all good, like really good email marketers, Daniel is making sure that even though this email like worked really hard to position this course as something really valuable and build a lot of desire for it, and also educate people, give them tons of value in the email itself, but he still doesn't want people leave hanging, because at this point they're kind of like this buyer mode. They're impressed because they read such a cool email and they're like, wow, I want to learn how to do that. And then why leave them hanging? Why won't you give them a link? It's a mistake. And Daniel gives them a link to compendium, and he also ties it in with this ridiculous framework, because this is just $101. So 100, he just strikes through all these words, these big words here, and it's just $101. So after 1,000 million, billion, trillion Googleplex dollars, I mean, this really sounds like a steal. It's not even funny. And again, like, some people are in the exact emotional state to buy something from him. So why not? Why not give them a link? I also like how Ben Settle always does this. So for the low price of $101, and then Daniel Throssell. That's just the simple, very simple sign off. So yeah, that's the email. It's I can't get over how creative this guy is. Seriously, like there might be better copywriters out there. There might be tons of other A-listers who, from an objective point of view, are better in some situations. But notice that most A-listers, for example, they became A-listers because they specialized on a single medium. They did megalogs. They did alternative health promotions for seniors or something like that, right? And I'm not saying it's easy to be an A-lister there, but if you're working like 20 years in that industry, writing one specific type of promotion, you're eventually gonna turn into an A-lister. But you have to look at context, right? You might take Gary Bensavenga, but his emails might not be so effective because he might not understand the current trend of edutainment in this sense and how important it is, especially to copywriting audiences, right? Obviously, like, if Gary Bensavenga were to put out a product, most people would buy it just because of his name. Like, his personal brand is through the roof. But even though Daniel he only started a few years ago, he's definitely making headlines with this type of unique style, and kudos to him. Like, really, it's hats off. This is really, really persuasive and really creative, and maybe that's what you need. You need these more creative, pioneering types of people in an industry to revitalize it, especially when, you know, every second person is a so-called copywriter nowadays, who just, I don't know, engages in the Justin and Stefan Talks copy group or something. It takes way more than that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this email. One more thing that I almost forgot is that at the end of the email, there are Bible references here, because Daniel is a true believer. Like, he's very religious, and he actively promotes the fact that he's very religious, right? And this is like sharing these intimate personal beliefs, especially in an age where most people aren't religious, and they don't want to bring politics and religion into these types of things. I think this adds extra integrity and trust to his character. And sure, it might turn off some people, but at least it shows that he's consistent and he's a man of his word. So yeah. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I had a blast with this one. Daniel, if you watched this video, good job. I'm really, really blown away by this email, and thanks for watching the video until this point, if you watched it. And for those of you who are new to the channel and this was your first video, definitely subscribe. Also click the link, the little notification icon. And by the way, I also have a pretty cool 5-part email copywriting course. It's free. It's called the 5 Principles of Sending Rainmaker Emails. Check it out. Link in the description. And also check out my proven sales letter breakdowns, because there's nothing out there like that on YouTube or anywhere else. So that's my unique selling proposition in a sense. But if you watch that, you're gonna learn so many amazing things from it. It's almost like a master's education in high-level copywriting. So definitely check it out. And thanks again for watching. See you in the next one.